You're listening to The South Stands, a Buckeye football podcast by Ohio State fans for Ohio State fans on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud.
Welcome back to The South Stands, a Buckeye football podcast by Ohio State fans for Ohio State fans from Columbus, Ohio. I'm your host, Zach Moore. Today is Wednesday, August 31st, and I'm very happy to be joined once again by fellow South Stands contributor, Paige Van Horn from Denver. PBH, how's it going, my friend?
It's going great, buddy. It's great to talk to you. You're coming in loud and clear from Columbus. I love it.
Okay, my friend.
Not the Bay Area.
That's right. And we are also joined, of course, by fellow contributor Chad Plummer from Cleveland. CP, what's the word from the 216?
What up, boys? What up, man? It's crazy that we're already at this point and, summer's pretty much over. It's Labor Day weekend. Excited to be on here with you guys. Little shout out to PVH's birthday was yesterday.
Yeah, right.
Happy birthday, bro.
That's a big deal. It doesn't, it's crazy we're here though, but it seems like it's been like 7 years, right?
It does. Right.
It does. It's been a long time since January. So it's really good to be with you guys. Of course, we're here to preview the biggest game of the opening weekend and one of the 3 or 4 biggest of the entire 2022 season. It's number 5 Notre Dame visiting the Horseshoe this Saturday night to take on number 2 Ohio State. The game is a 7:30 p.m. Eastern kick on ABC. And according to ESPN, the line is Ohio State minus 17. It's a pretty big line for a top 5 matchup. The over-under is 59. It doesn't look like we're going to have any weather. I don't think that's going to be a factor. Boys, I've been here all week and temps have been in the high 80s, but the evenings have been really, really nice. Gorgeous, actually, in the low 70s. Should be a beautiful night for this game. So,
oh, man, I'm jealous.
I'll bet. Yeah, man, I was hoping you guys could make it out for it. I will actually be at the game. But let's have a quick look back at last season just to kind of frame the discussion today. Notre Dame finished number 5 in the final playoff rankings. They ended the season 11-2 with a loss to Oklahoma State in the Fiesta Bowl, a game in which, by the way, they held a 21-point lead, couldn't get it done. Now, the biggest development out of South Bend, as we all know, last season was the departure of head coach Brian Kelly. He left to take the LSU job before championship weekend, before he even knew Notre Dame's playoff fate, by the way, which is crazy. And as we all know, Kelly was replaced by former Ohio State linebacker Marcus Freeman, who made his head coaching debut in the Fiesta Bowl. So that makes for a very interesting subplot in this game, by the way. Of course, James Laurinaitis, another former Ohio State linebacker, also on Freeman's staff. So very interesting subplot there as we head into this game. Now, as we all painfully remember, PBH, you and Chad most especially, Ohio State finished number 6 in the final CFP rankings. They were given a grade of a F, a failing grade from the both of you, as we both remember, and missed the playoff after
2 big thumbs down.
They missed the playoff after consecutive appearances in 2019 and 2020. I was a little more kind in my grade. I gave them a B minus-ish. But the Buckeyes finished with the number 1 offense in the country, as we remember, but struggled to run the ball and convert in the red zone in some of their biggest games. So that's something I'm going to be looking at in this Notre Dame game and beyond. And then the defense, as we remember, was an unmitigated disaster. Kerry Combs was replaced by Matt Barnes, the defensive play caller, after Ohio State's week 2 loss to Oregon. Buckeyes steamrolled by Michigan, 42-27, a very painful loss. First Michigan win in that series since 2011, but the season would end on a positive note with a thrilling 48-45 win over Utah in the Rose Bowl, thanks to record-setting performances from C.J. Stroud and Jackson Smith and Jigma. Boys, before I move on, anything from last season you want to mention to frame this discussion?
Yeah, I want to know if Chad's okay with CJ Stroud and he's still not crying about Quinn Ewers not being the quarterback. Just want to get that out there and see if you're okay.
All right. That wasn't that was at the beginning.
I mean, are you okay with the Heisman Trophy, leader?
Yeah, I'm going to be all right.
Probably the number first pick in the draft. Are you okay with that now?
Yeah, I think I'm going to be all right, man.
And Mullet Boy going to lead Texas to a 6-6 record. You're fine with that?
I'm good. Hey, Dan, I like our quarterback. That's all I can say. It's a new year, dude. So, still wagging, and I like the Mullet Boy, but hey, it was a topic of kind to get things a little bit off off topic, if you will. So
yeah. Well, and we'll see. I don't know. I mean, there's a certain segment of Ohio State fans who are just never happy, and if Ewers has success, in Austin, that we might hear the people complaining about all that.
I'm going in full support on my boy CJ Stroud. Our boy CJ. I'm with CJ all the way.
That's what we want.
Now, I think we should establish a rule though. At first pot of the season, let's stop asking if CJ Stroud is going to run the ball more this season. And can we establish that he doesn't really need to run the ball?
Right, he does.
I think I just read an article that said that they were going to rely more on his legs. I swear to God.
Oh, I read the same thing. I read the same thing.
Maybe not.
Good. Maybe not. Yeah. I mean, I guess, all right. He's got to run a little bit to keep defenses honest, but it was just such a funny topic that just kept coming up in every podcast that I listened to, every discussion about Ohio State. Okay. Well, listen, I don't think we should spend too much time breaking down Notre Dame and their too deep and all that stuff, but I do want to throw out a few names to watch on both sides of the ball before we dive into this matchup. Now, sophomore Tyler Buckner will start at quarterback for the Irish. Buckner appeared in 10 games last season. He has a grand total of 35 pass attempts with 3 picks, 3 touchdown passes. But, Buckner was a top 100 player in the 2021 class. He's a good athlete. He was used much more as a runner than a passer in limited action last season for the Irish, but he did average over 7 yards a carry. So that's something to pay attention to. Especially after what happened to Ohio State in the Rose Bowl against Utah's quarterback Cam Rising. He chewed us up on the ground. Junior tight end Michael Mayer is the player to watch on the Notre Dame offense, though. Last season, Mayer finished with 71 receptions for 840 yards and 7 touchdowns. Now, he may be the best tight end in the country, but PVH, what do we like to say about offenses whose best player is a tight end?
I wrote it down and I was laughing as you said it. Like, if that's your biggest weapon, then you got problems, which now it makes perfect sense why they are a 17-point underdog. You're starting a quarterback that has 35 snaps and your best offensive weapon is a tight end. I might put my mortgage on this thing. I couldn't figure out 17. Now it makes perfect sense.
Now, look, most of the experts think pretty highly of Notre Dame's offensive line. They have 2 pretty athletic tackles they really like. Joe Alt at left tackle, Blake Fisher at right tackle. Fisher was a top 100 player in last year's class, but they might be without their best interior offensive lineman, Jarrett Patterson, who has a foot injury. We'll see how that shakes out. I think he's questionable for the game. So, beyond Buckner and Mayer and PVH, to your point, I'm just not sure what else Notre Dame has at the skill positions. They do have some talent. They do have some good players. We just don't have a ton of experience. Their projected starting running back, for example, Chris Tyree, was a top 100 player in their 2020 class, but he only averaged 4 yards on 56 carries last season. So, jury's still out on Tyree. And their leading receiver from last season, Kevin Austin Jr., is off to the NFL. Avery Davis, who projected to be their best receiver this year, tore his ACL in practice and is out for the season. So that leaves them with sophomore Lorenzo Styles. Now, that's a name we're all going to recognize, right? That's Sonny Styles' older brother. Lorenzo Sr. was a linebacker at Ohio State in the 90s when we were in school. So Styles is probably their top threat on the outside. He finished 2021, his freshman campaign, with 344 yards on 24 receptions and 1 touchdown catch. Let's have a quick look at the defense. Defensive end Isaiah Foskey is a name to watch for Notre Dame. Foskey finished last season with 11 sacks. He was also Notre Dame's top graded defender, according to PFF. The Irish have a pretty good trio of starting linebackers as well, who are worth mentioning: Jack Kaiser, Bo Bauer, and J.D. Bertrand. Kaiser was their second highest graded defender last season, according to PFF, and Bertrand led Notre Dame in tackles last season. Lastly, here's a name we're all going to remember: safety Brandon Joseph. He's the Northwestern transfer. He was a player, actually, that when he went into the portal, I wanted to come to Ohio State. Ohio State fans will remember Joseph. He had an amazing interception in the Big Ten title game back in 2020. He was a first-team All-Big Ten selection that season as a freshman. So he's a good player who can do some things on the back end for the Irish. Okay, fellas, I want to go around the horn here and get some initial impressions from each of you on this game. PVH, let's start with you. Give us a few initial thoughts.
My biggest thought is the anticipation for this team. I even went back and looked over the last 10 years, coming into a season outside of 2015, this definitely feels like national championship game or bust. I wouldn't say from just from a season perspective, the hype is through the roof on this thing.
Agreed.
With Knowles, anything less than that is going to be a disappointment. I wouldn't go as far to say, hey, you have to win the national championship. Alabama is going to be they're going to be Alabama. We all know that. the more interesting thing to me is the line on this game. Like, can it really be a 2 versus 5 if it's a 17-point spread? And it's, right.
Could I say something real quick to that,
Sure.
PVH? All right. So I've been I was thinking that as well. And, so the projecting 22 starters for Ohio State includes 8 5-star recruits, 12 4-star recruits, and 2 3-star. Notre Dame starting 22 projection. 1 5-star, 14 4-star, and 7 3-stars. Okay. So, we're talking athletes, and I think that spread is a lot of it is built like Vegas. You're talking about athletes versus athletes, and we've got a hell of a lot more, talent than they do.
And I agree. And the other thing is you got really, he coached the bowl game, but this is Freeman's first game, right? How ironic, right? In Columbus, under the lights, everything.
After he ran smack too about the education at Ohio State. The clown.
Yeah.
Come on, Marcus, you're smarter than that.
And the quarterback, the quarterback's the other thing. So I guess it in some regards makes sense. And I know nothing really about Notre Dame's team. You told me, and I learned more about Notre Dame's team, Zach, and your opening than I knew coming into this thing. We all clearly know our team, right. And I think everybody's hanging their hat on really one thing, right? The defense is, acceptable, right? Which is completely unacceptable. Like, it should be a top 5 defense every year, just as good as the offense is. I think we all expect that. And I think if that's the case, then the sky's the limit for this team, and the chips fall where they may when they make the playoff. But as far as Notre Dame, I don't know. I go back and forth. Like, part of me really wants to put 100 on Notre Dame, because can it really be 17 points? I'm not going to do that. But
it's not.
It's not going to happen. I think it might. I could see like Notre Dame kind of hanging around, maybe even scoring first. But how do they hang with this Ohio State team? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, good question. How about you, CP? Give us some initial thoughts.
Well, I think like the point I made about the talent, but I think there's another thing that goes into that spread as well. Since 2014, this is the 7th game that Notre Dame has played, against a top 5 opponent since 2014. And they're 1-5 in those contests. And I think 2014 was the last time. They beat Clemson in 2020, and that's the last time they beat a top 5 opponent in the last 6 or 7 years. They're irrelevant. But anyways, I'm just, me, I'm not a big fan of the Irish, but I think that really, everything I've been reading, man, I'm so excited about Knowles and what he's bringing, the intensity and I read this pretty interesting. He's not a big guy to, switch players in and out. He wants to get them in the rhythm of the game and get them in, he's like a 2 deep, maybe he said maybe that the safeties, I feel real good. I've been reading a lot about the defensive backs of the safeties, and that they feel real confident they're deep at that position.
Yeah, they are.
So that's nice to see. It's nice to see that Lathan Ransom came back, and he's been one of the shining stars in a camp from everything I've read, and he's coming off that horrific break with that broken leg, and so it's been looking good. I'm excited about the defense, man. I just don't think
I haven't said that in a while. Excited about the defense.
Right. Yeah. It's usually we're all over here. I'm suicide hotline, hey, it's Chad again. The Buckeye defense sucks. But it's really good. It is nice. This is what we've, for the last, 2 or 3 years on our pod. That's what we're talking about. If we only had a defense to go along with this.
Okay, but hold on. We're saying this is really nice. They haven't done it yet. They do have to go do it. Right.
Right.
I think we all think they will, but come on, you got to go do it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. But everything I've read about Knowles and what he's done in the past and things of that nature, I don't think he talks a lot of smack. He says this defense is at 75% right now. He said he didn't expect it to be at 100%. He said
that's 75% installed, right? I think that's what he said.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, right. Exactly. 75% installed. Zeke, you're right. But there's no way. At the end of the day, there's no way they can keep up with us scoring. It's if they score, they pull one out late, which we've seen before and teams in the past. Last year, blowing out teams, and then all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, where they're doing a reach around and like putting some points up. I don't see that this year. And I think that's, I think we're just going to wear them out. I mean, I honest to God, I know we're going to do our like scores later, but I just think it's going to be a blowout.
Okay. You're feeling confident. Yeah. I'm with you. CP. Yeah, I'm with you, CP. My one kind of overarching thought about this game is really kind of focused on the defense. I mean, I think the outcome, not only of this game, but really the whole season is going to hinge on Knowles and this revamped Buckeye defense. And he really obviously needs to have them playing at a championship level on that side of the ball. And personally, I'm completely out on this idea that, well, they just need to be, top 35, top 40. No, this is Ohio State. Ryan Day's stated goal for this defense is top 10. He's on record having said that. Jim Knowles then upped the ante and said top 5 is what he's expecting.
I love that.
That's what I'm expecting.
Yeah.
I mean, That's what I'm expecting. That should be the standard at Ohio State, quite frankly. And for $2 million a year, that better be what Knowles delivers, as far as I'm concerned, starting this Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Now, I think what we're likely to see is a pretty limited Notre Dame offense without a lot of proven playmakers attempt to kind of replicate what Oregon, Michigan, and Utah did to the Buckeyes last season, right? Kind of run the ball down their throat, shorten the game, fewer possessions for that Ohio State offense. And, do it with not only just the running backs, but also Tyler Buckner. I think Buckner, I expect him to have at least 15 rushing attempts in this game. They'll obviously, look to get Mayer involved, right? Create mismatches for him. That group of OSU safeties, I think, is going to be tested. It's going to be a long night for them if they can't cover Mayer. And then I also think Notre Dame is going to try to challenge Ohio State's manhood in much the same way that Michigan did last year. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like the main event here is CJ Stroud, Smith and Jigba, Henderson, and all those other skill guys. The defense has a lot to prove, in my opinion, and that's really going to be watching. How about you, Beck? Kick it back to you, PBH. Any other overarching thoughts you want to share before we move on?
No, I think that makes sense, right? I mean, but then, I kind of thought, well, like maybe the offense takes a step back, right? It's possible, right? I mean, they were the number 1 ranked offense in the country last year. Is it realistic to say they're going to do that again? But it probably won't be dramatically, any different than it was. I mean, the skill players across the board are ridiculous. I think the one big thing, everyone talks about the defense and we want to see improvement there. I think that's clearly the number 1 factor going into the season. The other one, though, I think is the offensive line, right? Like they need to establish, they didn't do so great a few times last year, just like running the ball, establishing the run. I think would be like 1A or B of what I'd be interested in watching from, the team in general to see if there's, improvement. I think Paris Johnson, right? He's a preseason All-American. Okay, let's see it, man. Like establish the run when you want to do it. Clearly, I think you're right with the game plan, what Notre Dame wants to do and slow the game down. But if we want to run the ball, and just not have, CJ have to throw 72 times to come back from, 21 down against Oregon, then I think that falls on the offensive line. And I think that's one of the things I'll be interested in watching as well on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. The nice thing is they're going to be starting actual guards at the guard position instead of 2 tackles. And they've got 2 really good ones. I mean, Matthew Jones at right guard is a guy who's bided his time. He's been with the program a long time. He was kind of their 6th man as an offensive lineman for several years. He's a very steady guy at right guard. Then, of course, you've got Donovan Jackson, an elite prospect at left guard, and a guy they think could actually pop out to left tackle if they wanted, but he is a natural guard. And, it's those interior offensive linemen really kind of dictate things when you're trying to impose your will in the run game. So I'm with you there. That would be my 1B to the defense is, can we impose our will in the run game when we need to? And we need to get a tough couple yards, and everybody in the stadium knows we're running the football. Can we get that yardage? Last year, in some of our biggest games, we struggled to get that yardage. I mean, and we remember that first possession in the third quarter against Michigan on 3rd and short. And that was really kind of the turning point of the game. And Michigan never really looked back.
I think Paris Johnson's going to be throwing people around on that.
I hope so. He and Donovan Jackson are on the same side of that line. I mean, you want to talk about elite elite talent on that side. Let's make it happen over there. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. All right,
and I've been hearing positive stuff about Luke too, man.
Whippler. Yeah. Whippler's been good at center for them.
Yeah. I heard he's been balling.
This projects as one of the best offensive lines in the country. Not a ton of depth. That is a little bit of a concern. So you got to kind of cross your fingers for health. They don't have the same depth they did last year, but as you know, starting five, as good as any offensive line in the country, I think. All right, I got a little fun game here. Give me an Ohio State player on each side of the ball that you'll be watching closely in this game. Chad, I want to start with you. Give me one player on offense, one player on defense that you're going to be watching closely in this game.
You know what? I want to go like a little bit outside though. I mean, obviously Trey, man. I mean, you got to give it up for that boy. But that's kind of like the easy one, or like in Jingla. Like I'm or CJ. I'm gonna go. I want to look at Marvin Harrison Jr. on offense.
There you go. Yeah.
Because I think he's going to. I can actually take like. If I'm allowed to do this, I'm going to take the group outside of Njigba and make that Marvin Harrison, Fleming, and Njigba. I'm going to take those three and just like we'll leave or not Njigba. I apologize. Ibuka.
Okay. All right.
I'm going to take those three on my offense. I just want to see the receivers outside of them because I think we've got a special core. I think our receiving core is better than it was last year.
Wow.
What? Yeah, I'm telling you, it is. You guys wait and see. No, that's no disrespect. That's no no bad juju on my Olave and Garrett. But I'm telling you what, these guys are special, man, and it's only getting better.
All right, man. How about on defense? Give me one player on defense. Just one.
Defense. Tommy Eichenberg.
Dude, you took my two players. I shit you not.
Yeah. Sorry, Johnny.
What about Tommy Eichenberg is intriguing to you, CP?
Well, you know what? Like from everything I've been reading and listening to, it's kind of like he's taking a leadership role.
He's a captain.
Like he's like just been like putting in the extra time, and like he's just like it's like his body's even gotten crazier, and he's like inched up his speed a little bit. And I heard he just looks amazing. And I just want to see what, having him commanding that, in the middle there of the field. And I just, I think that's a position that Knowles really, really loves. Obviously the obvious ones on the ends, which I heard are balling out, and I can't wait to see them. But yeah, I think I wasn't expecting this, to be honest with you, man. Like when he first started playing, it's like, all right, he's average. I mean, it's just a typical Ohio State linebacker, like in the last, decade, average at best. You know what I mean? Right. But I think he's gonna peel that label and actually, play some ball.
Well, Eichenberg had a great Rose Bowl MVP. He made some big stops in that game to help Ohio State kind of get back into it. And we'll see if he can take the next step. If he's got a ceiling, maybe that we didn't, higher ceiling that maybe we didn't know about. Yeah, that's an interesting pick. I like that one, CP. How about you, PBH?
Yeah, I swear, I thought about Eichenberg because I was originally thinking, like how he will fit in with Knowles' defense, right? Because we know the defensive line is stacked, right? They're going to rotate 12, 13 guys. Secondary is going to be great. Burke and, Cam Brown back there. Yeah. Not worried about that. And Hancock, I think he's a freshman, right?
Sophomore. Yeah.
Sophomore.
Second year player.
So it comes down to the linebackers, and so then I was thinking, well, would CJ Hicks actually, see playing time? Will he, maybe be a starter by the middle of the season? But then I thought, Eichenberg, right? It was intriguing, but I did have another one was JTT, and can he be, or Jack Sawyer, the next, Chase Young, right? Or the Bosa. Right. Like we've been so spoiled by those guys. Right. So I thought, maybe JTT is some guy to keep your eye on to see if he just completely wrecks a game, changes a game plan from an offensive standpoint against him. And if that guy could be, Christ, wasn't he the number one recruit in the whole country 2 years ago?
He wasn't the number one recruit, but he was I have to go back and look at his recruiting profile, but he was a top 10 player nationally. I think he was the number 2 defensive end in the country. And he has the recruiting profile for that. It's interesting you mentioned JT Tuimoloau because a few weeks back, Larry Johnson told the media he has an alpha dog in his room, but he wouldn't say who it was. But much of the OSU beat, all the guys I listened to, pretty sure that he was referring to Tuimoloau.
Yeah.
So
he was the number 4 recruit overall that year.
Number 4. Oh, okay. Thanks, CP. Yeah. I mean, he got to Ohio State with the body. I mean, he had a body that was ready to play at that level as a freshman. And I saw flashes. I actually thought I wanted to see a little bit more of him in his freshman season than the action that he did get. I like that pick, Paige. How about on offense?
I was thinking Harrison, candidly. I mean, it's like I could say,
Jackie.
oh yeah, I want to see Paris Johnson. Like, I'm not going to be able, is anybody really watching the offensive line when you're watching the game unless you go back and watch it the second time, especially at a night game? It's 2 versus 5 and you've had maybe a cocktail or two. So I think it's Harrison, right? I think he's about ready to have a huge year. It's going to be just ridiculous. I mean, gosh, the pedigree, everything about it. How do you game plan to stop those guys, right? And you got maybe Fleming, and Mbuka is going to be out there, and then Smith and Jigba. It's just embarrassing, when we talk about it ad nauseum. But I think Harrison he's primed to have sort of like the coming out party like Smith and Jigba had like last year.
Yeah, 3 touchdowns in the Rose Bowl, and pretty big stage.
Didn't skip a beat, right?
Freshman.
Olave Wilson out, didn't skip a beat with those guys.
Skip a beat, yeah. For me, and you both have already mentioned him, and I hate to be repetitive, but I've been driving the bus for him since probably the middle of last year, and that's Emeka Egbuka. He's a player who flashed over and over again with limited opportunities, most of them only as a kick returner last season. I think he averaged almost 30 yards as a kick returner. He had 5 or 6 he almost brought back. A few huge catches in the Rose Bowl as well. I think he's the type of receiver you can play at any of the 3 positions. You can use him in the slot. You can use him on the outside. And of course, you can count on him to contribute in the return game. I can't wait to watch him. I'm not even sure if Egbuka isn't their second best receiver after Jackson Smith.
No. Yeah.
I mean, he was the number 1 receiver in the 2021 class. And I have huge expectations for Egbuka. Paige, you mentioned JT Tuimoloau. He was a guy I was going to mention as one of mine, but since you've already mentioned him, I'm going to mention my guy, Josh Proctor. He's a guy I'm going to be watching closely. I really feel Proctor has been mostly a victim of circumstance. In 2020, he had a terrible defensive coaching staff who had no idea how to pick talent. Somehow they thought, Marcus Hooker was a better player than Josh Proctor in 2020. And then, of course, the broken leg in week 2. And a lot of the folks I've been listening to, a lot of the Cleveland.com guys especially felt like the Proctor injury was, to a much lesser extent, of course, was similar to the Nick Bosa injury in 2018. You remember they lost Bosa, I think, in week 2 or week 3, and the defense was just never the same. And he left a gaping hole in that, in that defense. Similar, probably a better comparison would be the Christian Bryant injury in 2013. They lost Bryant in the Big Ten opener that year, and the back end of the defense was a leaking sieve that they never figured out, and it ended up catching up to them late in the season against Michigan State. I feel like the Proctor injury was at a similar impact. He's fully recovered from that broken leg. They say he's looked great in practice. He's now running in a safety-driven offense. They've used that so much on all the podcasts I listen to. It almost sounds cliche, but that's the truth. Jim Knowles likes to play with 3 safeties. So this defense seems to be tailor-made for Proctor. I'm expecting big things out of him this season. So
I got to give you props, bro, for sticking with Proctor, man. Paige and I gave you that. It's like, we're, down on you about that, dude, like a few times on the pod last year. And I know there was some abusive, text on the thread. So I give you props for sticking with him. I hope it comes to fruition.
I hope so too. And I see a ton of promise in him, and maybe I'm latching on to him with no real basis for it. But I think, look, I mean, if he can't succeed in this offense, in this defense, which appears to be tailor-made for his skill set, then I guess we'll have our answer. But
he's always flashed, though. He's always flashed. Right?
Yeah. You guys,
like that guy's lays the wood, and he's like streaking across the field, instinctive, and then that injury, last year, you're like, Jesus.
He only got, during that COVID 2020 season, they played 5 regular season games, and Proctor missed one of them because of COVID, so he only played 4. And then he played in the postseason. He had a big time interception in the Big Ten title game. I don't know if you guys remember this because the game was out of hand at this stage, but in the national championship game, he had a hit on Najee Harris at like the 2-yard line. It was a little flare out, a little throw to Harris out of the backfield. And he and Harris met at like the 2-yard line. And, he takes down, Harris is a load, and he's probably giving away.
Stood him up
and dropped him. Of course, Bama probably scored on the next play, but that was one of the only instances of any kind of resistance from the Ohio State defense in that game. So, I'm excited to watch Proctor. All right, boys, it's time to fire up the concernometer here. PVH, why don't you get us started? Give me your concernometer score for this game.
2.
Explain.
2. I've come around. Like, I just don't see how they can hang with us. And, it's at night. I think that Columbus is buzzing. Hey, Columbus is the number one on Airbnb. Really? Kudos to you, Zach. You have a Airbnb right now in Columbus. The number one destination in North America. I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned at all. I haven't been concerned that they would lose the game. What's more interesting to me is, can I come around to the 17-point spread?
Okay. CP, how about you?
I'm going to just flatline it at 0, bro. I'm like, I'm not concerned whatsoever. Now, I will say one thing. The reason that I was like, and this was marked on my calendar. Like, I was like, but, I started thinking about it after what happened last year when I was sitting with that kid over there in Denver. Like,
only for a half, because you left at halftime, and then
because you guys were talking about the Oregon
17
game.
times.
Oh yeah, the Oregon game when we got beat, and like I knew, like I was like, I got to leave now, and Paige was like, no, just stay for the first their first series, and like they ran that touchdown on like the first or second play. I'm like, God damn, I'm getting the thing out of here, man. So I went over to the Blackwell by myself and was just drinking. There's like 3 people, 2 other dudes. I'm like, dude, we're gonna will this back, and it came close, but it didn't happen. And that's pretty much the biggest reason that I'm not going down there this weekend.
You don't want to jinx it. Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's exactly why.
Your concernometer score is at a 0, and you just, Notre Dame poses no threat in your opinion.
No, not whatsoever. I feel like they're going to be like a deer in the headlights on Saturday night.
Okay. Of course, my concernometer score is higher than both of yours, as per usual. I got it at a 5. I got it at a 5, and this is based on 2 factors. We've been talking up the Ohio State defense, and we're all expecting it to be much better this year. But as we well know, it has been well below the standard the last 2 seasons. We're putting a lot on scheme and coaching, But there were moments last year where it just didn't look like we had the caliber athletes on the defensive side of the ball that we become to expect at Ohio State. So, do I believe it'll be vastly improved this season? The defense, yes, of course, that is my expectation. However, Paige, you said this earlier in the podcast, I need to see it first. So, look, it's a new defense, an almost completely new defensive coaching staff. It's reasonable to expect a few hiccups in this game coming out of fall camp. So, hopefully Ohio State can limit them, but I am expecting maybe a couple. Hopefully they won't too big. So that's one factor that my score is based on. The other is more of a historical factor. You guys know I like to take a historical view of games like this. Now, since 2005, Ohio State is 1-5 in what I like to call talent-equated non-conference home games. They're 1-5 in these games. I'm going to go through them for you guys real quick. The 2005 Texas game.
You have to.
Yes, we do. 2005 Texas game.
Sick.
Vince Young comes into the shoe. That was a hell of a good team, eventual national champion, but they beat us 25-22. 2009, USC comes to the shoe. They beat us 18-15. 2010, we face Miami of Florida in the shoe. We take care of business in that game. 2014, Virginia Tech were the eventual national champions, but we looked terrible in that game. We trailed by the 2 scores most of the game. Virginia Tech ends up winning by 2 scores in a game that wasn't all that close. 2017 Oklahoma, Baker Mayfield comes to the shoe. They take us out to the woodshed, beat us 31-16. And then finally, yes, you guys made mention to it already, Oregon last year. That was a game that wasn't particularly close. I mean, we trailed by double digits most of that game. We ended up losing by 7. So Ohio State has a lot to prove in this game, as far as I'm concerned. It is a little concerning that we just, for whatever reason, it goes all the way back to the Tressel era, we don't always get up for these talent-equated non-conference games at home, especially at night. It seems like the opponent is more like energized by the environment than we are. I really want to see that change in this game. God damn it! I mean, it's night game. It's Notre Dame. It's a top 5 matchup. Come on, Buckeyes, let's go. So that's why my concern-o-meter score is at 5. It's not a very high score. It's higher than yours, but that's why I'm a little more concerned than you guys.
It's a good observation that you made last year. Like they don't really perform well in those games. And I hadn't really thought about it until you sort of brought it up. 2005 is actually funny because when you said that, do you know where we were, Chad, when Texas beat us in that game?
I'm trying to think.
I'll remind you, we had just gotten back from the U.S. Open, and we were in Gallagher's loft in New York City, and you took his baseball bat out and you were beating the couch.
I do remember that.
Well, I mean, if you look at each and every one of these games, there is an explanation for, each of these losses, right? It's not always that, the environment just fires up the opponent more so than us. And we play poorly. I mean, that Texas team was the eventual national champion. They had Vince Young, and, we dicked around at quarterback in that game. If you guys remember, it was Justin Schwick. It was Troy Smith. They couldn't decide who, Tressel couldn't make a decision. For some reason, he didn't want to give Ted Ginn the ball. It was just, so there are explanations as to why these Ohio State dropped these games, but they haven't been great in these games. And I really want to see Ryan Day kind of buck that trend. All right, boys, let's get to score predictions. Paige, get us started. What's your prediction for this game?
I think that, to your point right there, though, this one just feels different. Like the anticipation going into this season is through the roof. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. And so I just don't see Manti Te'o's not walking down that tunnel. It ain't happening. I'm going 46-14. And I think this team is, they're going to do everything they need to do, win this game, and then set themselves up for the rest of the year.
46-14 Ohio State. Okay, CP, how about you?
We're definitely laying upper 50s on Notre Dame.
50s.
I mean, Day's coming out with this. I'm telling you right now, and Day is going to come out and he wants to show like he's still salty about that Michigan game, man. He's pissed, and he's going to just lay
born on third base, baby.
Yeah, born on third base, dude. Yeah, and you know what? He's going to come out. He's just going to they're going to hold back nothing. He's going to light it up. I look to see McCord being in this game by the beginning of the fourth quarter.
Wow. Okay.
I would say, I'm going to say 58-17.
58-17. Wow. That would be, that would have to be one of the worst beatings in Notre Dame history. I would think. Yeah. I don't have the record books here in front of me, but that would probably be a historic beatdown. I got Ohio State winning this one 42-20. I just don't know how Notre Dame is going to generate enough offense to keep pace with the Ohio State offense. I mean, outside of Mayer, they just don't appear to be dynamic at the skill positions, as far as I can tell. Now, they have a quarterback in Buckner who, only 35 pass attempts under his belt, making his first career start. Paige, you made that point earlier. I'm also just not sure how special the Irish are on defense. I mean, last year's unit finished 43rd in the country in total defense. 37th in defensive yards per play, only 94th in tackles for loss. And much of the same personnel is back from that unit. So, is that going to be good enough to contain Stroud, Smith and Jigba, Ekbuka, Harrison, Henderson, go on down the line? I don't know. I mean, is Isaiah Foskey, their defensive end, is he the transcendent talent at that position that Aiden Hutchinson is? I mean, he better be if Notre Dame is going to, have a chance in this game. So, yeah, I like Ohio State 42, Notre Dame 20. And you guys also mentioned, I do think Ohio State is going to play with an edge this year. I do think the way the season ended for them, the loss to Michigan, the fuel that Michigan poured on the fire with some of the comments after that game, I think that's going to fuel them all season. And of course, that's going to take us eventually to that Michigan game at the end of the season in the shoe. So 42-20.
Where are you sitting, buddy?
I'm an A deck. Around the 20-yard line or so on the visitor side.
That's nice, bro.
Yeah,
that's like it's crazy that the money they're getting for these tickets, man. It's insane.
I mean,
but you like Notre Dame's got they got one of the biggest followings. It's great. Like it's just nuts.
It's nuts. I'll be interested to see how many Notre Dame fans are there, because they're right next door, and there are a lot of Notre Dame fans in Ohio too.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that.
Notre Dame.
Real quick on Michigan, since we brought that up, and I tweeted about this from the South Stands Twitter account. So if you're keeping score at home, right? I mean, you've got the losses, the attrition of, Aiden Hutchinson, Ojabo, all those special players on defense, Hassan Haskins on offense. Then you've got, you lose both coordinators. You've got a flirtation, a very publicized, highly publicized, failed jump to the NFL by Jim Harbaugh, by the head coach. And now you have a quarterback competition that is going to extend into week 3, at least, because Harbaugh came out, if you guys saw this, he came out and said, each quarterback is going to get a start before week 3. So they've got a lot of talent. I was listening to Dave Rebson of the Big Ten Network. He was on Stuart Mandel's podcast a couple of days ago. And, the Big Ten Network does their bus tour, and they visit each school, each campus, and look at each team for, one day of practice. And he said that normally Ohio State is like clearly head and shoulders above every other team in the conference, talent wise. But he said actually Michigan was much closer to their equal than they've ever been before, or that they've been in a long time. So they do have talent there. They have a lot of talent there, but all this other stuff, I'm just wondering, we saw what a indecision at quarterback did to a really talented team back in 2015 with Ohio State, when Urban Meyer couldn't settle on a goddamn quarterback, and that completely, torpedoed their whole season. So I don't know, could Michigan end up could this be another disastrous season for Harbaugh, I guess is my question. I don't know. What do you think about that, Paige?
Well, definitely could, just because he's a weirdo though, man. I mean, he's strange, you know? And so it doesn't surprise me. He had some other weird question about if one of his players, a
biblical comment or something that he made.
No. Well, that too. Yeah. He said, this isn't like an X and O's thing. This is like a biblical thing. And then there was something else where he was like, what if one of your players impregnated somebody? He's like, well, we would just raise, me and Mary would raise the kid. He's a weirdo. He's strange. No, I swear to God, he did that. I don't know.
A clown.
He's a clown. But I think, the other interesting thing is how horrible, and this is your realm, CP, but how horrible they are in recruiting right now, because why would you go play for that guy? He clearly wanted to leave. He clearly,
dude. I don't get any of that bullshit. I'd be like, who wants this clown? He was ready to sign, man, with the Vikings, or was it Vikings, whatever. Anyway, whatever. Harbaugh's he's a doofus.
Real quick, just a couple of other. It's kind of a light slate. I mean, you got Ohio State, Notre Dame, and it's opening weekend, so it's like Christmas, and there's probably going to be a lot of shitty games, but we're going to watch anyway because it's the first full weekend of action. But kind of a nice appetizer tomorrow. Penn State at Purdue.
Man, I'm
tomorrow.
Yeah,
Purdue's supposed to be legit this year. That quarterback's
Aiden Hutchinson. Yeah, Aiden O'Connell. Aiden O'Connell's a good player, man. You'd be hard pressed to find a better statistical line than what he put up against us in the shoe. It just didn't matter because their defense couldn't stop us. But I like O'Connell. He's a good player, and Braun knows how to scheme up an offense. That's at Purdue. Penn State's a 3.5-point favorite, but that's a nice little appetizer.
It's not ranked, by the way.
Neither team is ranked. It's crazy. Yeah. And then the only other game I think I really care that much about is number 11 Oregon against Georgia. That's in Atlanta. It's a 3:30 kick. Georgia's a 17-point favorite in that game. I guess that line makes a little bit more sense, but that's a fun one I'll be looking for. I don't know. You guys got any thoughts about that game? Who do you like in that one, CP?
It's something because who's like quarterback, like Nixon, like isn't Bo Nix, like he's quarterbacking for Oregon now, right?
Oh, is that right? Okay. All right.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting. I mean, and plus the Oregon's coach is Georgia's defensive coordinator.
That's right. Good point.
So you never know, man. Like, who knows what could happen down there.
There you go. Take the Ducks and the points and the Buckeyes -17. There's your 2-team parlay.
All right. All you South Stands listeners, there's one for you. We'll keep track of throughout the year.
Yeah, there you go. If you'd have bet $100 on every one of these, you would be E4.
All right, boys. Well, listen, if neither of you has anything else to share about this game, I'll let you go. We're coming up on about an hour. PVH, you got anything else? Any parting words for our listeners?
It's great chatting with you boys. It's fired up. It's the longest week. This literally feels like the longest week in a long time. I don't know why. Like I'm a day behind. Like Tuesday I thought was Wednesday and today's Wednesday. I'm like, oh, this is Thursday. Like, oh my God, let's just get this thing going. Taking forever.
CP, any parting words for our listeners before we call it?
You know what? No, it's good to be on with you boys. Z, I'm jealous. Well, no, I'm not jealous. I'm happy for you because I didn't want any bullshit like last year at the Oregon game, but glad you're going to be there. Looking forward to talking again next week about everything that went on at the shoe surroundings. I'm looking forward to seeing what the uniforms they're going to throw out because I know they're doing the 2002 uniform thing, right. And that team's going to be there as well. So
that's right. They're going to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the 2002 national championship team. Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. So I don't know what kind of uniforms they're bringing out, but they're supposed to be something awesome, something good. So right. But yeah, man, let's go Bucks, dude.
Go Bucks.
Yeah, put your mortgage on the Buckeyes. Take it, laying 17.5.
All right, fellas.
Call Chad, your financial advisor. He'll take that bet for you and refinance you when you lose and you cash out.
You'll be living in a van down by the river.
All right, boys.
Thanks
so much for making the time. Later. Okay,
have fun,
talk to you next week. All right,
keep it real.
Bye.
Take care, boys.
You've been listening to the South Stands, a Buckeye football podcast. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and visit our website at southstandsosu.com.